Tables in Google Docs. Accessibility in Practice. Colorado Department of Labor and Employment. Next, we're going to talk about tables. Tables in Google Documents should be pretty simple and concise. If they are complex or long, refrain from using a Google or Word document and instead build these in Excel or Google Sheets. I have in my example Inaccessible Google document a table that's called Status of Assignments. And the purpose of this table is to show a list of assignments, the responsible owner and supervisor of the assignments, and the date that they're completed, and the current status. Already I can tell in this table there's a couple of issues. For one, the table does not have very clear headers. In the first column, we have assignments as a column header. That's clear because we have a listing of assignments like new hit punk song, promo video, or rubber ducky rap. But in the second and third column, we have a merged cell. The merged cell says responsible person, and that's over 2 columns, which are owner and supervisor. This can make it confusing for screen reader users to identify what type of data exists in these 2 columns. So what we want to do is unmerge these cells so that we have very clear headers for each column. So I'm going to show you how to do that. So first, I'm going to select all of my document cells related to these merged cells. And believe it or not, not only is this one responsible person header merged cell merged, but so are the ones next to it because it's merging the cells below. It's merging the rows below. So we're going to have to do some cleanup here. So I'm going to select the cells that I need to edit, and I'm going to right click, and I'm going to select Unmerge Cells. Oh gosh, now I have a bunch of weird cells. I have 2 rows where I had 1, and then I have a couple of blank cells. So what I'm going to do is start moving some information. So I have assignments, responsible person, blank, and then date completed. And I can tell date completed is also still merged because it's merged between the first and second row, which means I also need to unmerge those cells. So I'm going to do that too. Okay, so now I have assignments, responsible person, blank, and date completed, and that's my first row. And now I have blank, owner, supervisor, and blank. So now I need to clean this up because I can't have 2 rows with some blank stuff in it, right? I need to have very clear, accessible headers. So I'm going to keep my assignments because that's the clear header for the assignments row. Instead of responsible person, I'm going to label that owner. And instead of the blank, I'm going to put supervisor. Now, instead, I could also add responsible person in front if I wanted to keep that information for both. Because remember, responsible person was merged over top both owner and supervisor. So I could add that information to make it clear that it does still apply to both. So I can still do that, and I will. And now my second row is kind of redundant because I have blank owner, supervisor, blank for my 4 columns. So I'm actually going to select this row and I'm going to delete it. And now I have 1 row with very clear headers. My headers are assignments, responsible person dash owner, responsible person dash supervisor, and date completed. Oh, thank goodness. But to make sure that my row headers are read correctly, I need to make sure I pin them. So I'm going to right click and go to Table Properties. And underneath my row, I'm going to select Pin Header Rows. What this does is it tells Google, hey, I have a header row in my table. I have very clear headers, And if my table were to be long enough to go to the next page in a document, it will repeat my header row so that users don't have to scroll up and down to view that header again. It will already be repeated, which is very helpful for users. So now I have very clear headers. I've pinned my header row. I also know that I have a title of my table, status of assignment, so that's very good. I don't have any merged cells anymore, very good. And I only have one piece of data in every single cell, very good. I don't have like a list in each cell. I don't have, a paragraph or, bullets or things in each cell. So this is looking pretty good so far. The last thing I want to do is check for color reliance. So I notice there's a note up here that says status of assignments, not started, in progress, completed, and past due, and they're in different colors. Not started is in blue, in progress in black, completed in green, and past due in red. And then in my assignments column, the assignments are also colored in different colors. And I think that is to portray the status associated with those colors. However, let's say I'm colorblind and I can't see the different colors between green and red. I may not know that the new hit punk song is completed and the promo video is past due. This would be an ineffective way for me to communicate the status of the completion of my assignments. So there are a couple ways that I could more effectively communicate the status. One possible way of doing this would be to add another column. So I'm going to hover over my table and insert another column, or I can right-click and I can insert another column that way. And this column, I'm going to just name it status because that's what this is, right? So again, I have another appropriately named header. And then using my own ability to see color, I'm going to interpret the color and the meaning. So new hit punk song is in green, and I know that completed is in green, so I'm going to interpret that that means completed. Similarly, promo video is in red, and past due is in red, so I think that's past due. Sunshine poster is in black, which is in progress. Rubber ducky wrap is not started. Quality assurance report is completed. Silence is past due, and internal docs is in progress. So now, even if I don't see color or can't see color, I still have information about the status and the completion of the assignments. I can keep the color as long as the color contrast is appropriate, which we'll talk about in another video, for those who do see color. But just in case, I also want to make sure I have the status available in another format for folks for whom color is not an appropriate means to communicate information. Find more videos on our YouTube channel at CDLE_